Hello, my name's Rhiannon. I'm a social psychologist from Queen's University Belfast in the UK. I'm really happy to be here and to be involved in this project on diaspora. However, like Thomas, I also have not previously done work on diaspora, and my talk is also not about diaspora. And it's not directly about conflicts or conflict groups, but it is about intergroup relations. And my research has typically been around intergroup contact, and today I'm going to talk about how one particular aspect of this, which is how we can potentially try and go about improving intergroup relations by promoting what I'm going to talk about, which is called confidence in contact. So this is the talk is basically based on a theoretical model that I've developed with a colleague of mine who is a social developmental psychologist called Lindsay Cameron, who's based at the University of Kent. And both of us have done a lot of work on intergroup contacts, and she's done a lot of intervention work in schools, and I tend to have done more cross-sectional and experimental work on contacts. But both of us have primarily focused on the consequences or the potential benefits of intergroup contact for intergroup relations. But over time, what we've become increasingly concerned about is how you can actually get that contact to occur in the first place. How you can harness diversity, and obviously the world in many ways is becoming a more diverse place, but how can we actually use that diversity to try and promote more positive intergroup relations? And that's basically the focus of what I'm going to talk about. So just taking a step back from that, why is diversity important? And I should point out that the work that I'm talking about and the model that we've come up with is focusing on harnessing intergroup contact and harnessing diversity in a school context. Although I think potentially it could apply, in other contexts with older people as well. So why is diversity important, and particularly in a school setting? Well, the first probably obvious thing is it provides a fantastic opportunity for contact, potentially, especially in diverse areas, because of course it's one place where children are going to be, maybe 5 days a week, and they're going to be working cooperatively with one another. So it provides that kind of opportunity or baseline where contact can happen. And we know there's quite a bit of research now which shows that children who attend diverse schools experience a range of benefits. So, for example, they tend to have more positive intergroup attitudes. There's some evidence that they have more positive pro-social behavioural intentions towards members of other groups. So they're more likely, essentially, to do nice things for people in other groups. They're more likely to view group-based exclusion or group-based bullying as being wrong. And they also tend to have more inclusive friendships, and that's the key thing that we're interested in. So we know that essentially one of the reasons why we think diversity has these benefits and results in more positive attitudes and more positive pro-social behaviour towards other groups is because it promotes cross-group friendships. And there's a kind of, over the past 20, 25 years, there's been a growing body of literature which shows that cross-group friendship has a whole range of benefits from intergroup relations. And these findings have emerged kind of internationally in a whole variety of different group settings. So these friendships are associated with more positive attitudes, lower levels of anxiety about interacting with other groups, high levels of intergroup trust, and a whole range of other positive factors associated with intergroup relations. And because I know I'm on a tight time schedule, I'm going to just point to a couple of my past studies which have looked at cross-group friendship and just some of the benefits that cross-group friendship can have, but I'm going to be brief here. So in one study that I did, this is part of my PhD, and it was cross-sectional research, so among white British primary school children, we found that children that had cross-group friends, so who are from the South Asian community, and there are parts of the UK where there's quite a strong, South Asians would be the largest minority group in the north of England. We found that children who had these cross-group friends with South Asians were more likely to self-disclose to children who are South Asian and be self-disclosed to by these children. And this is a key aspect of the development of friendships, any friendships, but would help those friendships to develop and formulate. They'll also be associated with lower levels of intergroup anxiety and also predicting more positive attitudes, both on an explicit level, so self-reported attitudes, but also on an implicit level, so automatic association level, measured using the IoT. In a completely different context, so this is in Northern Ireland, which is where I'm based. This was another cross-sectional study among Catholic and Protestant high school students in Northern Ireland. And here what we did was look at schools that were both integrated, so these are schools where Catholic and Protestant children attend the same school, but these are very much in the minority in Northern Ireland, so only 7% of children attend these integrated schools. And we also looked at schools which were separate, so separate Catholic and Protestant schools, which make up the vast majority of schools in Northern Ireland. And what we found is children who had experienced diversity, essentially by attending these mixed schools, compared to those who had attended separate, segregated schools, had more experience of cross-group friendships. They also self-disclosed more, they empathised more with the other group, and they had more positive attitudes towards them. We also found that, and perhaps because children have more mixed friendship networks, so there are people within your group who have friends in the other group because of their experiences at school. We also found that experienced diversity was associated with high levels of extended contact. So that's knowing people in your own group who have friends in the other group. And that also had a range of benefits for intergroup relations, including promoting more positive perceived peer attitudes or peer norms about the perceptions of your group about the other group. And that predicts more positive attitudes as well. So we know that cross-group friendship has a range of benefits for intergroup relations, but there's also evidence that the benefits of these friendships actually goes beyond intergroup relations. So, for example, there's evidence that people who have children who have more cross-group friends have higher levels of social competence. There's some evidence that they have higher levels of self-esteem, well-being and resilience. They tend to be better at perspective taking. They have greater leadership potential. They tend to be more popular. And there's also some evidence from my own research with a colleague in Italy, Laura Strasali, where we found in a longitudinal study that children at the start, high school students at the start of the academic year in Italy, who had experienced intergroup contact with immigrants in Italy, at the end of the school year reported greater levels of agreeableness and openness to experience. Now, this is a bit of a controversial one, because obviously these are personality measures and people tend to think of them as stable. But it does seem that experiencing contact maybe changed the way these children were perceiving themselves. And they were kind of seeing themselves as more open individuals who were kind of more open to different experiences with individuals from different groups because of the experiences they had. Having said that, so there's lots of positive stuff about the benefits of cross-group friendships, but there are also some concerning patterns that you see if you look at what's going on in schools. So, for example, there's evidence that children are typically attracted to same race friends, so specifically in the case of ethnicity, and they actually choose to self-segregate. So there's been some really nice studies done by a number of different academics. This one study in particular by Alramaya and colleagues, they observed children's behaviour when they were in the cafeteria at lunchtime and looked at where they sat, where they moved in that space. And what they found is that children typically divided up, so the white children sat together, the black children sat together, and so on. So we tend to see this pattern of self-segregation, and concerningly, it seems to increase over childhood and adolescence. So it's something that actually seems to be getting worse over time as children get older. And so we know that these cross-group friendships seem to be less durable than same-group friendships. So this is obviously a concern, and what do we do about this? We know that friendships are great when they actually happen, but how do we actually get them to happen in the first place? So, social and developmental psychologists who are working in this kind of area have recently really called for an examination of the actual conditions that help to initiate friendships in the first place, and that help to maintain them. And this really involves quite a significant change in the focus, because a lot of the research today has been a very sort of typical pattern. If you look at cross-group friendships, you look at what happens after the cross-group friendships and what the benefits are. This is just kind of like reorganising the way you're looking at it and actually looking at the factors that predict cross-group friendships in the first place. So with that in mind, Lindsay, Cameron and I propose a kind of theoretical model which is really bringing together a lot of research and a lot of thinking out there. So we're not reinventing the wheel, we're trying to pull together a lot of the work that's already been done. And what we've argued is that what we need to be doing is encouraging in children a state of confidence in contact. And we've defined that as a state of readiness for positive contact, whereby children have the necessary confidence, skills, beliefs and experiences for successful intergroup contact. And what we think is that if you can instill this confidence in contact, then you can essentially make children kind of contact ready. This is actually going to increase the chances that when they are in diverse settings and when they actually have the opportunities to engage with people from different backgrounds, they're actually going to take up those opportunities. So essentially, if you kind of think back to that cafeteria study that I mentioned, these are the children that are going to cross the cafeteria and go and sit on that other table with somebody who's from a different background to themselves and form those positive relationships. which will then go on to have all of the benefits that I talked about before. So what does competence and contact look like? Well, we've argued that it should be kind of a constellation of mindsets, of skills, but also kind of underlying social structures that make having a mindset like this possible. So, for example, we would say that children who are competent in contact, they might be the children who they have positive attitudes towards the other group. They're generally positively oriented towards them. Because they have positive attitudes, they're going to have positive expectations of how those out-group members might behave during an interaction. So they're not going to be anxious, they're not going to be worried that if they interact with somebody from another group, that person's going to be negative towards them, because they've got those positive expectations to start with. They're going to be the sorts of individuals who can appreciate that although there might be differences, there are also likely to be similarities, maybe similar hobbies, similar underlying values. They're likely to appreciate that there are benefits to having diverse friendships that go beyond intergroup relations, that by having diverse friendships they're going to be learning about new perspectives, they're going to be broadening their social network, learning new skills from interacting with people who are different from themselves. As I said, to have these kinds of factors, you might need to be, or it would be better if you're in a situation where the school is supportive and encouraging and has an ethos that actually makes this kind of thing possible, and related to that your peers have positive attitudes and are not going to sanction you for actually engaging in those kinds of relationships. And also either you should hopefully have good social skills and self-efficacy about contacts, and the beliefs that you can actually engage in those sorts of relationships. So key components of competence and contact is self-efficacy. So this would be an individual's beliefs or confidence in their ability to carry out particular behaviour in order to achieve a specific outcome, and that's kind of part of Bandura's self-efficacy model. There's plenty of evidence that, or there's some evidence, that children and adolescents who've got general self-efficacy, so they just tend to have self-beliefs, so they can get what they want, that their behaviours are going to be successful, can actually predict more positive contacts over time. But Bandura has argued that efficacy related to the task at hand is going to be the best predictor of future contact. And with that in mind, we developed a measure of cross-ethnic friendship self-efficacy. So, what factors might predict this kind of self-efficacy? Essentially, we're arguing that this is a key component of confidence in contact. So we're kind of using it almost as a proxy to that. And this is because it's kind of a new concept and there hasn't been work onto it directly yet. But according to Bandura's self-efficacy model, there are 4 important factors that should predict self-efficacy. And we're going to try and apply these in an intergroup context to the case of cross-group friendships. So the first of these sources is enactive experiences. So that's if you've done the task previously, you're going to feel that you're more able to do it again in the future. So in an intergroup context, having previous experience of intergroup contact is likely to make you feel more self-efficacious about engaging in contact. Secondly, vicarious experiences, so having modelled task success. There's already quite a bit of evidence around this in the intergroup relations literature, so there's evidence that extended contact, so learning about or observing contact, or even imagining contact, so running through a mental script of what you might do, what you might say, what might happen during contact can actually make us feel more confident about interacting with that group members. So there's already some evidence that that pathway might be there. Social persuasion, so what we hear from others about the potential success of particular behaviour. So in the case of intergroup context, norms around contact should play a significant role in this. We know that negative peer norms are cited by children as the main reason they don't want to engage in contact with the other group. So if we can reverse this and provide positive norms about intergroup contact, that should promote cross-group friendships more effectively. What Bandura called physiological cues, so feeling anxiety and stress would lower self-efficacy about engaging in a behaviour. But indeed, we know in an intergroup context that people who feel anxious also about contact, about engaging in those relationships, often avoid intergroup contact. But on the other hand, if you can reduce anxiety, that's been shown to promote greater desire to seek out future contact. So very quickly, we tested this in a cross-sectional study with 101, this is year 7 and year 8, so 11, 12-year-old students in a diverse ethnic background in London. So it's kind of super diverse school environment. And we asked about their experience, because there were lots of different ethnic groups, we simply asked about their experiences with other ethnic groups. So it could have been any of the other ethnic groups involved in that school setting. And we asked about those 4 sources of cross-ethnic friendship self-efficacy. And we asked about the 4 sources. We included our measure of cross-ethnic friendship self-efficacy, which was confidence in various different aspects related to friendship building, so spending time with, self-disclosure, trust and shared interests with friends from other ethnic groups. And we also measured persistence to engage with cross-ethnic friendships, because Bandira argued that persistence is a key mediator underlying the effects of self-efficacy on future behaviour. And then to look at the outcomes, does self-efficacy actually promote friendships, which is what we're arguing. So motivation to make cross-ethnic friends, quality of cross-ethnic friendships, and quantity of cross-ethnic friendships. And this is pilot data, so the analyses are a little bit basic, but just to give you the basic idea, each of the 4 sources that we identified as potential predictors of cross-ethnic friendship self-efficacy, or confidence in contact, if you want to call it that, all 4 of them have played a predictive role in self-efficacy. Obviously, bearing in mind this is cross-sectional data, it's just a small sample, it's just a snapshot at this point. Cross-group friendship self-efficacy subsequently, regression analyses show that it subsequently predicts the quantity of cross-ethnic friendships, quality of cross-ethnic friendships, and also increases motivation to make cross-ethnic friends. So if you have that self-belief, if you have that confidence about engaging in intergroup contacts, you're more likely to have those friendships and develop those friendships. And we also found that persistence mediated this relationship. So, and that's this idea that even if there are challenges when you're engaging in intergroup contact, that you keep continuing and you don't give up, that you actually continue to engage with that. So if you have that self-belief and that confidence, you're more likely to be persistent with those friendships, and that mediated quality of cross-ethnic, the effects on quality of cross-ethnic friendships and motivation to make cross-ethnic friends as well. So I haven't really got time to talk about how we might promote confidence in contact, but there are various intervention work involving extended contact, so that idea of modelling friendships by reading stories about them, by learning about them, by watching videos about them, and that's been shown to actually change people's behaviour when during actual interactions with our group members in experimental work. And also imagine contact, so simply like forming a model in your head, essentially running through a script of what contact might look like, can actually promote more positive behaviour during contact as well. So that's the full model. I was never planning on going into that, but just so we are kind of looking at the factors that might predict confidence in contact and also the outcomes of that. But obviously there's a lot of work to be done to actually test the full model. So I think I'll leave it there. Sorry, Liz.